Irrigation session we saw yesterday. And yesterday we discussed around the topic unveiling transforming agricultural land use that boosts your income. And yes, this particular webinar is a 4-day webinar which started yesterday, and it's hosted by Diversification Agri-Tech Services. And we hope that we'll be able to use this webinar to drive and educate many salient issues that impair, or should I say, reduce the result of our farming activities. And today we will be discussing on the topic maximizing farm efficiency to generate a whopping 70% returns in the first year. And this particular webinar that we are talking about today is just like Mr. Yinka tried to give us a summary or an overview on that topic. The topic essentially is focused on helping farmers to strategize or implement medium or ways to boost their farm productivity and their profitability. And the key message or the highlight to this is that it would help us utilize various aspects of our farm operations. So, is it possible to achieve such feats? I mean, the 70% returns, just like we put in one of our flyers. Yes, it is. It is. So,
All right, so I think Olaoluwa's network just came in and glitched him out. But why before I get back, I would like to emphasize that we've got three attendants
okay,
on our
I think
WhatsApp.
just as everyone here who is a part of this, they are maximizing their farm's efficiency and financial performance in that relatively time frame within 12 months. So let me make welcome the speaker once again for today, Mr. Dini Ishuremi, who will be shedding more light as to this particular topic. Yeah, good morning, Mr. Ni.
All right, beautiful. So thank you, Olaoluwa, and then of course thank you, Inka, for the initial introduction. For the initial introduction into the topic, of course, that people could expect into this conversation. Also, thank you, Olaoluwa, for the initial brief about the possibility of what today's conversation could actually bring online. Before we go too far, of course, while we may not be able to see everyone on our LinkedIn, if you are currently listening on our LinkedIn, kindly type in your name. Let us know you're listening on LinkedIn so we can know who is online on LinkedIn. Also, from our WhatsApp right now, we have four participants on our WhatsApp. We've got Mr. Ruben Adebayo, Mr. Benjamin Lucas, we have Mr. Lekongo Kemi. We equally have a number we don't have saved on our database as well, but the number is ending with 1428. So these are audiences on our WhatsApp as well. We appreciate and welcome them all into this webinar. This is the first time we're hybridizing LinkedIn and WhatsApp together, and we hope that there would be better outcome. We just have Mr. Kendi Akinradu also joining us on our WhatsApp call session as well. So thank you to everyone. We're going to allow room for question and answers, and we'll try to moderate these questions from time to time. Inka will be handling question and answer period, but equally I'll be engaging Olaoluwa and Olayinka in a fireside chat on the topic, and I'll be using more of question in the beginning to draft out the mind of the populace, right? So as the focal speaker, I just don't want to just assume everything myself, as I wouldn't allow all my experience to do all the talking. I would also share both the experiences of my co-speakers and my co-hosts, Olayinka Adelugba and Olaoluwa Oyedeji. Would also review these things together, and when the time is right, we ask questions. Now, for those on our WhatsApp platform, I want to emphasize that if you want to ask question, and that question while we're talking, it jumped into your mind, it came to your mind, you can go to the LinkedIn and drop the question on LinkedIn, right? You can just go and drop the question ahead of time on LinkedIn. It doesn't matter, right? You can do that while you're even on this call. Just go to the post on LinkedIn and drop the question there. If you don't have access to that particular event on LinkedIn, you can signify, and Mr. Lam Lekon can send that link to you. So you can just go down and drop your question ahead of time, even before the webinar is at the tail end. You can drop your question in advance. It doesn't matter. It does not affect anything whatsoever. All you just need to do is go to the event on LinkedIn. There's a comment section there. Drop it there. So for those on LinkedIn, if you're listening, you can introduce yourself by giving us your name so we acknowledge your presence as well. Now, before we go too far, I'm going to push to Inka first, saying how I and Inka had been in this journey together from 2016 together. Interestingly, you would like to know that in the early days of our journey, Inka was my roommate while I was in my undergraduate days, and together we started this company. It was the first partaker of the whole fruit of this company, and as every great ideas that were coming to my mind back then about agriculture, about future of agriculture in Nigeria and across Africa and across the global space, Inka was the first year that was picking up all these radars and all these antennas, and we're able to together plan and forge the future. Everything we come to have today, or we come to lay claim to, or we are managing and supervising today, came from concepts that I shared with Inka and then eventually shared with my other co-founders, that we sat down to implement better versions of it. So of course, Inka, let's pick it from this place, right? In our early days, say 2017, could we boldly talk about this topic that we're talking about today, we were talking about today back then? Then you're so young, you're new to the sector, the possibilities of everything is opening up to you, and you're so enthusiastic. But then, if we had handled this topic, how do you think it would have fared? Like talking about 70% return in the first year in agriculture. What sort of experience would we have used and talk about that right now? And what might be different about that time and today?
Well, I think the answer is no, because 2016-17 is almost a decade, I know. And what we know then was quite very basic. Even if we had tried to attempt speaking on this topic, we would have spoken based on what our knowledge cap could comprehend us at that time. But looking at the experience we've gathered over the years,
As Inka left me alone, apparently Inka might have audio gone off.
Okay, so I'm currently back.
Okay, welcome.
Working with several crops, working with several farmers, working at several.
Okay, Inka is a bit gone again.
My son is trying to buzz my line. I don't even know why they're buzzing me at this time. So apology for that. So
you're forgiven.
Yes, I'm trying to say that the knowledge gap between then and now is quite wide. Now I would say we are more experienced. We've gone through every single month, every single year in, year out, coming out with a load of experiences. I don't want to start reminding you right now, New York, the times when we start with vegetable, the experience we had with market, and from vegetable we went to cucumber, we went to maize. Now we are currently at cashew and plantain. This experience, and they are not things that money can buy. So now I think, yes, we are speaking about this particular topic today. Of course, we have where we are coming from, and of course, I can say yes, we can approach it better now compared to where we were then. So thank you.
Inka, you've dissected that in the best way anybody could dissect the cake. I'm really, really happy that you've pointed it, and you were spot on it particularly because, well, you didn't even start very well. We started with castor, right? Have you forgotten we started with castor? We started with castor farm, and I remember we were having so much.
We were still undergraduate then when we were doing. That was around year 4.
Year 4, okay. Yes, it was the end of year 4 now. That was late 2015, like early 2016, late 2015, early 2016. That was where we started from. Then we had so much harvest that we were just so like, how do we even sell off this harvest? Like, the woman that was helping us keep our harvest then, at some point our harvest actually almost filled our room up, right? Our harvest was almost the only thing that was in all our room. And then from there we innovated down, and then of course we started doing tour around the southwest, north central, from Ekiti down to Niger to Abuja. We're moving, helping many farms with our limited knowledge back then, helping many farms come on the best wings that could bring them profit. There were so much challenges. Everyone was telling us all their challenges as if we're messiahs. Well, in reality, we're trying to be messiahs in the agricultural sectors in the best way we know how to, not in a way to blaspheme God, but in our small human capacity anyway. So we did all of that, and then we went, as you said, we did vegetables. From vegetables, we went to cucumbers. From cucumbers, we came back to vegetables. Then vegetables, we went into maize. Of course, maize. Then we went into egusi, wild melon. You missed that part out. We did wild melon. Then from wild melon, of course, now we are focused on long-term projects like cashew and plantain, right? But now, outside all of this, of course, we are more equipped to talk about this topic right now, having seen the length and breadth of many products, right? Not to talk about the fact that we did poultry in 500 level back then. We saw what profit. I was the one that handled the financial part of that poultry operation. Then after then, of course, we eventually got to snail rearing. After rearing a bit of snail, of course, post in our early days of business, so much opportunities to talk about. So right now, I just want to encourage all our audience that when we talk about this sort of things, right? I want to say that we have a reason to talk about it, and we have some level of experience to add to this thing that we believe would change the face of so much. You see, before you go into a business, we feel like you should even know the depth, length and breadth of that business. You need to find a way to know the length and breadth of that business. It's not something you can just do without understanding the length and breadth of it. Is it possible to actually earn 70% on it? Is it not possible? Know what is obtainable and what is not. So that at the end of the day, disappointment would not roll. We don't want disappointment to roll, we want it to be calculated, right? And that's why this topic is here in the first place. And of course, I think with what Inka has said and what I've added to it, I think we can all agree that we have one or two to say about what can actually give you that 70% return in the first year and what you have to do to earn such revenue in the first year. Now, to bring it home, right? Yinka represented a much old experienced farming personality. Olaoluwa represents a much newer and younger personality in the agricultural sector. And I'm going to put Olaoluwa a question right now that would help us understand what people in the newer space of agriculture, people that are young in the agricultural sector, what are the kind of things they may have in their mind, or they may want to, how will I say it, want to talk about as much as possible. So an example of that is Olaoluwa, for you, right? How does 70% per annum in return sound to you? Like as a young Gen Z, I guess. I believe you're still within the Gen Z realm. Are you? I don't want to. I don't think you don't mistake things like that. It's very very rude to mistake things like that, right? Are you in the Gen Z, or you're in the millennial realm, or you're in between them?
If it's possible for me to even go lower than that, maybe a Gen Alpha, I would say I am.
Can you imagine?
Because
So that
I
talks
don't
about
want to
innovative
seem
mind.
old yet. I don't want to.
You don't
I want to
want
just
you ought to
remain
just be
fresh
newer.
and young.
Forever young. That brings me
Yes,
to Jay-Z's
yes.
song Forever Young. But nonetheless, right? So as a member of the young generation, right? And of course you're part of our teammates. How does 70% works for you? Let's say outside agriculture, someone tells you there is an opportunity for 70% return in an opportunity per annum. How would that sound to you, right? How would that interest you?
Well, with my own knowledge, I would say it seems far-fetched if I'm going to attribute it to people in my generation, or people that they are quite young and maybe they want to explore a lot of areas and things. So, listening or hearing this particular statement, hearing that there's an opportunity that presents itself as such, earning 70% returns. Wow. A lot of young adults would want to go into it. But then, when you now get to listen clearly or clearer, and then you hear agriculture, at first you might have a doubt that agriculture is it the same agriculture the other generations or other people had, the old people, the semi-skilled laborers and the likes they are doing, and still yet they are not earning as much as they ought to or as they should. Like their effort is not something that is in in line. I would say in line with maybe the results that they are getting. So they just have a this doubt, like this disbelief that is it possible? Is it possible? Okay, what's the new thing? What particular um, evolution have they made or are they making towards ensuring that you are earning as much as 70% returns annually? Because I know a lot of people here, especially people that maybe are of the same school of thought as I am right now, they might also share in that motion or in that notion that, wow, I don't think that is realistic or is feasible. But there are areas to go about this, and how can we know them? Is by listening to or is by learning and coming to is it webinars like this where we can be impacted with such lessons and knowledge from people like you, Mr. Nee, and Mr. Yinka, who have also witnessed this particular event occurred. Because listening to your your chat, yourself and Mr. Yinka, where you talked about growing vegetable, growing cucumber, I think I've heard about such in the past, but then it just seems like how were you able to do that maybe in your undergraduate days? Because many undergraduates in school, I'm done with school, but there are many undergraduates who don't even do anything in agriculture. Many. You just maybe accept if their course of study is something in line towards agriculture. And some of them might not even have the passion, so to speak. Might just be doing just for maybe for marks or for other things, project inclined or assignments or whatever. But then that's just my own thoughts though. Some people might beg to differ. But now if we are going to put it on a scale of 1 to 10, I would say that if I'm going to say that is it possible to generate 70% return in the first year, I think being a part in Dofma has given me a first-hand witness towards that. And that's because I've been a part of people like Mr. Nee, like I mentioned earlier, who can help the audience and people that are here to understand how to go about it. So that's just my own view about this particular question. Thank you very much, Mr. Lee.
I really appreciate your input there, Olaoluwa. So typically, with that in mind, yes, and I want to actually point out that it was only castor we did while we are in the university, right? Every other thing happened after we are done with school, but castor was the only one with that. Okay, castor and potato. Interesting. I didn't even, the story is just too long, I beg. Yes, we had castor and potato. Then we now that potato, the cow of our neighbor ate our potato on our farm and the stems and like uprooted them. We're so mad. They couldn't touch the castor because castor was poisonous to cow. So they could not touch castor. So they only went for the potato and destroyed potato. We had to confront them. Then they apologized, but there was no kind of improvement. I think you can remember all of these things, sir. But now that is all the intros that you yes, I think I is affirming. Oh, it was very painful back then. Oh. If it was now, I don't even mind to put some castor seed and choking them out of those cow myself, so that they can literally die well.
Imagine the effort of young guys that were trying to at least do something for themselves.
Yeah,
Myself, yourself, Gideon, Jokies. At that time, the stress of having to leave school, and the distance then, having to leave school. I think it
mm-hmm.
was to what's the name of
It
that
was
location
quite far.
again?
Is it
Probably
Okiola or something? I've
quite distant.
forgotten. Abi,
Quite distant. It
it's
was
very quite
you
far.
can't trek it to you have
It's
to
almost
spend
close to
about
Iresa. Do there now.
1,500
Yes, it's close to
on
Iresa. Do
logistics.
there. Mm-hmm.
But it was fun.
It was. Thank you, Inka. So, without any much delay, okay. So, what do we do when you want to maximize efficiency of your farm to generate 70% return in the first year? Now, going into the whole conversation proper, we have only about 30 minutes to 25, 30 minutes to talk about the main topic itself, and then give room for questions. So basically, what do you need to do to maximize your farm efficiency so you could generate 70% return in your first year? Now, most of the work for this 70% return is not really about the farming here. It's what you do pre-farming that matters, right? So the results in a simple terms, like in the simple literal terms, is that the success of your farm post-harvest is determined pre-harvest, or your success of your farm post-farming is determined pre-farming. So that's the statement, like as simple as that. Now, if we stop there, then we've actually said everything there is to say. But of course, let's elaborate that topic. The success of your farm is dependent on your activity pre-farming, right? Now, your pre-farming activity is what that means if that 70% is literally possible or not for you. So, for every farmer or farm owner, active farm or intending farmers, you need to understand that statement in literal terms. That whatever you do before you start farming determines what happen after, or determines the revenue margin you would have post farming. So, in the southwest, we have a blessing and a curse that is in the southwest. When I mean a blessing and a curse, what I mean is simple. Blessing in terms of the fact that we can literally farm all year round in the southwest. And I literally mean all year round. We can literally farm all year round, 365 days in a year in the southwest. It's possible. Now, rain alone rain alone can give you the possibility to farm for 9 months in the southwest. Rain alone, and I'm serious. I'm not joking, right? Not all crop particularly, but some crop, right? You could literally farm them for 9 months consistently. And when I say 9 months, take from like from January, from March ending, right, to early December, right, to December, early December, right. So if you do that permutation, right, late March to early December, that's 9 months. And I'm talking about that is the possibility of rain. Rain can make this possible. Right now, if when I was going to Taraba in early April, I kind of had some maize, right? I had maize on when I was going. I didn't fly. I took the transports. I took the transports route. I didn't have much cash anyway to fly. Flying was already touching our account so much. So I had to pass. When we passed, I think we passed Ikire. Yes. After not after Ikire, even I think after Iwo. Yes, we saw them selling corn. Corn. After Iwo, after is it Iwo? No, no, no. After Bogon, yes, that also where they sell that akara also. Yes, as if we were going to that Ife road, the Elisha road. Yes, we saw them selling maize, so I decided to buy. But after buying, I can quickly call ask, she agbado doing lele, like is this maize this year's maize? And I'm like, yes. And at that instance, I knew that the only way that maize, and looking at the price, it's not a greenhouse maize. I can't buy a greenhouse maize. A maize produced in a greenhouse. I can't buy 5 or 4 for 500 naira. It's not possible. You don't buy maize that you produce in greenhouse 4 for 500 naira. It doesn't work that way, right? So yeah, no, it's not produced in greenhouse. So I knew it was produced using either planted. Although there's no any major river on that road, right? There's no any major river close to this place, right? And the people that sold it to me does not look like people that will go to very far distance to go and buy maize and sell 4 500 naira. No, you know, saying 4 500 naira, it's because they produce around. And while I was still on that thought, not about more than 20 minutes from that place, I just saw a field of maize by the right that was already removing the comb. You know, now that those wattles on top of the maize plant, right? That looks like a bit of shaft like that. Yes, and I saw maize farm that already had that shaft. Immediately I deduced, because a friend of mine that was in IIT a few years ago told me that do you know that IIT now have 1.5 months maize? I was like, are you serious? So I beg, get away. 1.5 months care. There's no even logical sense to it. I think I was telling him about 2 years ago. And I told him, he said, however, it's still experimental and it's not yet given out on a commercial. It's not yet commercially being distributed. So it's an IITA, but it's not commercially available everywhere. As it still requires certain regulations for Nigeria actually adopt maize like that and all. But and I remember that's true. They say this maize is possible. There's 1.5 months, there's 2 months, there's 2.5, there's 3 months, and then there's 4 months. Now they've already started facing out the 4 months maize already. So the average maize you see out there now is 2.5 and 3 months. That's the one that is outside there right now. That's the one Nigeria's actually, like Nigeria's adopted that one, I know for a fact. But that 1.5 months, I've not seen it anywhere. So I thought, oh, that's true. The first rain that fell in February, particularly in Lagos, was not a rain that fell once and stopped. It was a rain that fell like almost 2 or 3 times in February. Now, if that is the case, it means that whoever planted maize around Lagos, right, in that February, their maize would have survived enough. And these days, they are creating several varieties of drought-resistant maize, which means that if you plant a maize and there's no rain in 2 weeks, the maize will still likely survive. Right? That's the story of the maize in Ilaro as a town. Right? When I went to Ilaro last 2 weeks, there's been only one rain since February. Only one rain. And when that rain fell in March, they planted with that rain. And there are some farms whose maize survived. The second rain fell when I was there 2 weeks ago, and the rain was so windy, it destroyed several things. But their rain survived to that part. So the maize survived 3 weeks of no rain, was surviving on only dews that come in the morning. So with all of this, it's possible in the southwest to produce from late March to early December every year, particularly if you're producing things like maize and other drought-resistant crops. Now that's that one. Now if you're planting cassava, you actually can farm 365 days every year for 10 years. Like, there will never be a single break, right? Even in Taraba, right, I saw cassava still growing. Miracle, right? It is serious. Like, when I was there in April, cassava that were as tall as my shoulder pad were still existing in Taraba, which means that even in Taraba as well, you could plant cassava all year round, right? I saw some few ones in Zamfara, but the place I saw them in Zamfara were places that are close to the river. So it was understandable that they were using river to keep it alive. But in Taraba, those cassavas were not anywhere near the river. They were like on the normal soil. So what I'm trying to say is, you can actually produce food consistently. But since that is now a possibility, the first thing you do is, before you start planting, what are your networks? What network have you created, right? What product have you selected to cultivate? All those things matter in getting 70% return. You can see, if you go into vegetables, right, for example, as a product, 70% in the first year is very difficult, extremely difficult. It's possible, but extremely difficult. And whoever is going to go into vegetable the first year is either that person already has technical know-how of vegetable farming before he goes into it, or his core manager or one of his partner has technical know-how of vegetable farming before that venture. Because while vegetable farming is possible, you need to understand times and season. The biggest problem with vegetable farming is not about the production. Production, I think a lot of people know how to ace production now. We've gotten better at it. The tricky part about vegetable farming is understanding the times and season. So logically, when it's supposed to be low quantity available in the market, produce more, right? When you think they're usually glut, produce less, or they won't produce for the market anymore, process that product, right? For periods when there's glut, don't sell to the open market. Process your products and sell to the international market. When there is scarcity, make sure that you target those period and produce more for those period. Now, at that instance, you definitely will be experiencing 70% return from a vegetable farm. But as I said, it is the plan you've put in place before the farming that determines the outcome after the farming. For vegetable, as I said, it's possible, but really difficult. And that's the truth. Now, when it comes to legumes and grain, right, I must emphasize that in the southwest, right, our terrain is not so adaptable to legumes and grain, a lot of it. It's possible, but not all part of the southwest is beautiful for it, right? First and foremost, you need to understand that in the southwest, the ability for our wheat to grow, it's very prevalent. Like, it's so easy for wheat in the southwest to grow without any stress. Wheat grow without stress, without interest. One rain, the wheats are already as tall as your kneecap or your ankle level. Just one rain. One year in 2 days, your ankle there are wheats that are actually covering your ankle, right? And give it just 1 week, some of them are even touching your kneecap already, right? Give it another 1 month, you're looking at your waist in weed already, right? That kind of terrain does not make it suitable to farm. For example, of course, we have a subsidiary called DevSA that currently provides farm staffing for different farms across the southwest. We've employed over 200 workers this year into different farms. And one thing that is common as a complaint between many clients is, the workers from the north don't know how to use cutlass very well. Only a few of them can use cutlass very well. I'll tell you why that is so. The reason why a lot of northern workers don't know how to use cutlass is because in their terrain, it is right now, okay, before rain start happening, most of their lands are grassless, like literally grassless. There's no grass in some of their land. So all they do is they just use hoe to take out the debris and the dirt on the farm. They use O to all those debris, all those old stock of wheat, guinea corn, sorghum, maize, all those their stem that is rooted to the ground. They just use O to clear everything. It's not weeding for them; it's just clearing for them. So, and when the rain starts, Northerners, because of the way of their way of life, they don't wait till grass becomes plenty. Every day they are going to the farm, so the grasses are always very small, and they weed them. And their rain is not as torrential as that of the southern part of Nigeria. So they don't get rain that often to the point where they're having several weeks to grow. So at the end of the day, all they require for their farming is largely hoe, right, and rake, and all those things, not cutlass per se. But in the southwest, cutlass is very, very primary because of the way our wheat grows, right? So if you look at that very well, couple that with now planting things like legumes that cross on the floor that does not grow really tall, or you plant grains that is there. Before you know, you have to do weeding all the time. And if you look at your expenses, of course, couple the fact that in the south we don't have a lot of our people that farm in the south. Most of our people in the south don't farm per se. They don't like going to farm anymore. I don't blame them. There's more job opportunity in the southern part of the country than in the northern part of the country. So our children in the southern part have the liberty to choose. Now, if you have to now keep employing to keep your farm neat, before you know, where those in the north are spending, they are around close to 150,000 on 1 hectare of production. In the south, you're spending almost double on the same hectare of that same production. So at the end of the cost of these legumes and grain in the southwest is much costlier than in the north, except you're using tractor. And tractor, the wear and tear in the southwest is higher than the wear and tear in the north. So I would advise that legume and grains makes it difficult for a farm owner to generate 70% return in the first year. The only way you can generate 70% in the first year for a legume and grain is if you're adding value. I say it again, adding value. You know, the idea about today's webinar is to help you understand how to maximize your efficiency to generate 70% return in your first year. I started with vegetables. Get me very well. I started with vegetables. I told you the way to generate it is by ensuring that you have someone that start taking care of the vegetable market system. And how, in summary, the person has to learn how to produce more for period of scarcity and produce less or not even produce at all for periods of glut. Now, despite the fact that you're not producing for period of glut, does not mean that you're not producing. You're producing, it's just that you're not selling to the open market or the closed market during period of glut. You're producing to process and add value so you can export or sell it at periods of scarcity. That is the mind, and that's how you earn 70% from vegetable farming. Now, as I was talking about legume and grain, yes, the only way you make 70% return in a southern system is only by adding value. So you want to make 70% return in your first year from your farming activities. Then learn to add value to your product, particularly if you're in the legume and grain. For example, in the maize farming system, adding value could be as simple as allowing it to get dry in your farm, harvesting it and shelling it and putting it in silos. That alone has gone as taking out of the room of average farm owners, because because you've stored them in silos, you have the possibility to sell them when they are of high price. Mr. Ruben, could you kindly mute your device? We really appreciate that. So, as I was saying, just by having welcome to our new client on WhatsApp. WhatsApp has been having a lot of people coming and going. I need to emphasize that we appreciate every one of them. We would like to advise that the mic be muted on WhatsApp so as to allow everybody get to hear very well. Thank you so much. We really appreciate that. Going forward now, maize, just by getting your maize dried on the field and putting them in silos is enough to actually get good value for it. Because one, it put the sales in your control, right? The sales of your maize comes into your control. It's not determined by nature so much anymore. Provided you use a proper silos. They are local silos, right? And they are well invested silos. That's why I say that what you do before the farming determines if 70% return is possible for you after the farming, right? So for people that understand this silos factor and they put silos in place before the farming commences, like in the southwest, the few places where I've seen local silos built are places where they build it in center of their farm. They don't build that silos outside the farm. They build it in the center of their farm, right? You see them, they'll use stick to elevate it very high, and then the silos over there. When they harvest, they put them there until the day of shelling, right? And you notice that they usually put engine oil, used engine oil around the foundation of those wood, so that insects would find it difficult to use it. Even most of the wood they use, they are usually covered in used grease, and those are the ways you don't get to even see any insect on them at all. Those are preservation techniques. That's not what we're targeting today. We can talk about that some other day. But all in all, when you store your maize, you've elevated the value because you can actually sell it at a point of scarcity because you are in control of your products, right? Same thing similar to every other legume, beans, any other thing you produce that are legumes and grain, right? And that is the only way for you to make 70% return. We are willing to help you create a strategy to help you achieve this. If you need it, we will create it for you. We don't have issues creating that alongside with you. That's why we are here for you, to create that system with you, to ensure that what you do before farming is perfect enough to ensure that you have good value after farming. Now, outside that, now, if you're now in the space we call personal space, and personal space for us is the long-term oriented business: cocoa farming, cashew farming, oil palm farming, plantain farming. All those things are perennial projects. If you're in that space, then welcome, right? Because we are in that space because of low barrier to entry, low cost of maintenance, annual farm maintenance, and possibility of high return. That is why I call those spaces, right? As at this year, I don't know if that's come down. As at February, they were selling a ton of cocoa seeds for around 2.6 million naira. A ton of cocoa seed was being sold at 2.6 million. I was not there. I heard that cocoa in the international market got as high as $10,000 per ton. Now, it means for those that are exporters, aggregators and exporters, they actually got to sell their cocoa for between $10,000 at some point in late February, early March. Now, it means that they got that. Now, for Nigeria's current, how will I call it, unstable foreign exchange system, if they take $10,000 at that time, for those that actually have the credibility, because selling at $10,000 I can assume it's going to be a premium value for those that have cocoa seeds that have the highest quality rating. And if we even have that in Nigeria, and some farmers actually sell at $10,000 per ton, it means that with our foreign exchange money that was dancing like Aulu Lukumba kind of beat, or that was dancing like dancing on Afro beats, they would have actually been able to get up to 15-16 million in per tonnage of exported cocoa beans around that late February, early March. Now, as I said, I didn't bother finding out if this was what my own mentor had, because my mentor was not actually in cocoa. He actually deals with cashew. But if I actually wanted to really know the nitty-gritties, I could easily just reach out to my mentor and ask him that, yes, cocoa to worth $10,000 in the international market. Tony. Or I could ask him that, is it true that this thing is $10,000 in the international market? But I feel like that information, even if it's true, does not really add anything to me per se. All I just need to know is just hear it and think and be glad for people that are in the cocoa farming space, right? So those are things that are there. Now, those that have that cocoa, this year now, their profit is not 70% return. No. Their profit is around 200 to 300% return. Now, those are the ways I think I make profit. This year too, coincidentally, right? Let me don't speak of cocoa as if it's really cocoa that is getting blessed out there. Cashew this year got to as much as 1.2 million per ton. It has dwindled back now. Let me even see what the actual current value is while we are together on this call. Let me quickly see what the current value is. But I know at some point cashew got to 1.2 million per ton. I want to check what today's value is for cashew, because you can check all these things naturally. Even you can even check cocoa naturally right now, year and year. I can tell you their both value in the commodity exchange interface that we've got going on. Beautifully, it is actually owned by a Nigerian, right? Okay, so cocoa is currently 12 million naira now per ton. I just checked it now. The SCOC variety is 12 million naira per ton, right? According to afexexchange.com, right? Afex is one of the leading commodity trading platform in the whole of West Africa, and is owned by a Nigerian. Right, so it's currently going for 12 million now. So you see, I was not wrong when I say $10,000 were what some people were making at it sometimes. Now, looking at cashew now, I'm trying to look at the cashew because I said it was 1.2 at some point, and I want to see what the current value is now, so we can be able to understand that money is being made from commodities. The only difference is just are you making it as well from it or not? Because it's not everybody that hear about the stories that actually make money from it. So what you do, particularly on these products, is where the determinant factor is if you make 70%. And like I said, if you're in that space, like the perennial project space, then you are certain to rake in great harvest as much as possible. Okay, so cashew right now is 1.1 million. Yes, I just saw the value now. Cashew is currently 1.1 million in how will I call it, per tonnage. So that is wonderful, right? 1.1 million tonnage, 1.1 million per tonnage, and that's what cashew is currently going for. So as I said, those that are selling cashew at 1.1 million right now, right? And I believe those are KOR of 50 and above, right? Or 48 and above, 48 KOR and above. In some cases 42, it depends on the region the cashew is from. Now, if that is the case, it means that someone that has cashew that is 6 years old, right, from 1 acre is expecting around that 1 tonnage, minimum 1 tonnage per year. Eventually, at 10 years, expecting around 2 to 3 tonnage from his cashew. It means that at 10 years, person will be expecting 3.3 million per annum. And how much do you get is maintaining your farm to even get started with? It's going to be around 500,000 or even maybe 600,000 at most to maintain your farm, and you're getting 3.3 million. But even with the money you spend in the first 3-4 years of gestation, right, you still are not going to spend up to 3 million naira for the whole first 4-5 years for gestation period. You're going to spend up to 3 million naira. So now imagine a product that will bring you accumulatedly close to 15 million naira in the first 10 years, and all you spend in the first 10 years is around 4-5 million. You can imagine what that crazy revenue would be. So as I said, before you go into a farming, what you do for going into a farm is what that means, what you get on an annual basis. And this is what I'm trying to explain, right? So I've explained about vegetable, I've talked about legumes and grains, I've talked about long-term projects like cashew and plantain and cocoa and the rest of them. Now, last thing I'm going to talk about is root crop. Root crop involve yam, cassava, and many other cocoa, yam, and all. Now, to have 70% return on things like that, particularly you have to understand that value addition is instrumental. The only root crop, tuber I can tell you that you don't need to add too much value to actually make return is yam. I'm saying that with my full chest on top of my head and beneath my head. My full chest everywhere that yam, you don't need to do special processing to reap 70% profits. I know this because all you just need to do once you do your farm, our advice that if you're going to do yam farm, don't do it in the southwest. I understand how you may feel, right? But if you're going to do yam at all, just go and go to a good state in the middle belt, right? Niger is a good place. Nasarawa is a good place. Benue is a good place, and what's more, insecurity is reducing. At least I was in Benue last month. I was in Taraba last month. I was in Nasarawa 2 months ago. I was in Niger about 2 months ago as well. Yes, and of course I was in Kogi as well last month, and I can tell you that insecurity is reducing drastically. A lot of them are having the confidence to go back to farm. If you want to go into yam production, please consider the middle belt first. It's not as if it won't work in the southwest. It will work. It's just that the production value is not the same with the middle belt. Now, once you now produce in the middle belt, the first thing I want you to do is understand that you don't sell when everybody's selling. Find a way to store your yam. After storing your yam, then you sell at off-peak period, off-season. Selling at off-season guarantees you very much value, right? You can make, based on my research when I was in Taraba, your farm could give you just 1 acre of farm can be giving you close to 4,000 or even more tubers, and this is a legitimate response, not a double response. Up to 4,000 tubers if done very well per acre, and a lot of them are harvesting it, right? But they are selling it at a cheap price. Some of them are selling it at 500 naira per one, 300 naira per one. Like in Benue, you can still get yam for 500 naira per one, 400 naira, 300 naira per one in Benue when you go to their wholesale markets, right? And when you now do 4,000 times 300 naira per one, you're looking at around maybe max case of 1.2 million. But of course, the production cost is going to be around. Production cost for yam is quite high. It's not cheap. Yam is not a cheap commodity to produce. Even for the local members, it's still not cheap, right? Now add transport logistics to it, that because it's a bulky product, transporting it is also not cheap. Now they are using over 100,000 to transport their yam alone to the market. Of course, why some of them, even the local people are telling that they are spending around 500,000, 600,000 on a yam project in a year. Local people, local, that have, they don't need manpower. They and their family are already manpower and just need additionally two people to join them. They are spending 500,000 or put 500,000 on production cost alone just to produce it. 100,000 on logistics minus every other in between chemical and everything they spend. So a lot of that, you can see that some of them are spending as much as 800,000 on their yam farm only to get 1.2 million at the end of the day, 400,000 margin. So of course that is what it is. But when you, instead of you selling it in that place, you bring your yam to Lagos where one is being sold for 1.5 to 4,000 depending on the size of the yam. Even if it's 1.5, you know how much you're expecting is different, right? So it is that understanding and plan that you've made before farming that determines the success after farming. And that is root super. But if you're doing things like cassava, cocoyam, and the rest, please add value. That's my simple solution or statement on those ones. Add value, and you can actually see 70% return on your first year basis. Now that I've itemized all of it, one of the underlying B's that I will tell you is instrumental is what you do pre-farming determines what you get post-farming, and that's why I'm going to like to summarize all of my long and short conversation in already. As I said, if you have questions, if why this was going on, of course, before we in next maybe 5 minutes to 10 minutes we call for question and answer. Kindly you can quickly go on LinkedIn and put in the question there. No hard feelings. We'll pick that and read it out from there. But if you want to wait till the question and answer and you want to speak out generally during that period, then it's only normal and it's okay as well, as much as possible. Now that is all I have to say about maximizing farm efficiency to generate 70% return in the first year. Now, this does not go without saying that if you have done a good plan before your farming, now the only thing between that plan and the reality of that plan is now your management processes post farming, right? You've planted. Now please have a good management system. Your staffing operations has to be good. So if they're supposed to weed every 2 weeks, please let them weed every 2 weeks. If they're supposed to weed every month, please let them weed every month. Let that be there. If you need to spray once in a month, please spray once in a month. If you're supposed to spray twice in a month, don't joke with it. Spray twice in a month. The right quantity, the right dosage. Don't underspray, don't overspray. Both of them are harmful. You overspray, you're killing people that are eating your food. You underspray, your product might even have lower yield. So please don't underspray, don't overspray. Those two things we are against it. So after that is done, ensure that you keep an active relationship with your market that you've made plans for before you start your farming. Keep active relationship with them so that they don't disappoint you. And as a rule of thumb, don't always go into production with only one market opportunity. No, go into production with possibility of multiple market opportunities. Whether or not you have direct access to them or not, have multiple options and don't joke with them. So I think this goes without saying that everything that brings out your result for 70% has a whole lot to do with your plan before farming and to a certain degree how you manage your current farming activities, and that is the truth. And that's the summary I would want to pick. Yinka, do you want to add anything about the next 5 minutes? Because of course you have had experience as equal as I have on the farm operation system. You want to add something about 5 minutes to it as well before we allow Lua and you anchor the question and answers.
Okay, so thank you very much, Adini. I think the few things I want to put an highlight on is the fact that um, you once you've done a lot in your planning process, you've taken so much time to invest in that. You also need to ensure that uh, the planting phase also is also taken care of, and this has to do with if at all you're relating with maybe annual laborers or per service laborers, you need to be able to manage this effectively. Because if you're unable to do that, it spoils everything you really, really worked for. It doesn't make it show. There are so many factors that that are being imputed into what you want to achieve that are external. You need to be able to, make plans and extra plan for those external factors. One of which is labor. Is that okay? For for example of rain that you mentioned now, because when rain started falling, I think the third month, some persons have started planting. Maybe they thought the rain will be consistent, but you can see how, you know, in some places they just only experience once or twice. I think in Ijaya as well too, I think it's just twice. And in some places they've seen 4, 5. So you need to be able to make preparations for some external factors that might hinder your plans and preparation. So if you're going to be going into anything, make plans and make double plans, like backups. Yes, that's just it. Backups. And always relate with experts along the way. Once you're having several challenges, don't just uh, audit yourself or you lash out on your labor, those that are around you, or talk to people that really know little about it. Talk to experts. You know, that is where you get the right solutions from. Is that okay? So I think these are just key things I would just want us to also look into. And of course, I am certain, looking at also that depending on locations, um, the crops that we can consider differs as well. So you need to understand the crop that best suits your location in terms of growth, proper growth, and in terms of market, so that you don't begin to put a lot of stress and pressure on yourself. So all these things are things you should look at, and of course you're good to go when that is done. So thank you. I think we can go to questions and answers now. Over to you, Lol.
All right. Thank you very much, both speakers, especially Mr. Nee. Yeah, very, very profound. I must say. Well, I have some questions for Mr. Nee and then Mr. Yinka. So while the conversation was ongoing, I was trying to type in some questions here, and I'll be reading them out now. So, Mr. Nee, I hope you can hear. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, I can. I can.
All
I
right.
can.
Okay. So, for the first question, for farmers who may have limited resources or capital to invest, what are some of the low costs, or is it no cost changes that they can apply to help improve this farm efficiency thing that we are talking about in the short term
For
for people
farmers
or for farmers who have low capital? Yes. So
who
that's
have
the
low
first question.
capital,
That's the first question. Sorry.
that's
Can
okay.
I ask another, or you want to answer first?
Let me answer first, so that I
Okay.
don't get
All
them
right.
muddled up. So for farmers with low capital that want to implement the strategies I've talked about, I don't think it has a lot to do with low cost farmer or high cost farmer. I think any farmer can actually maximize what I'm saying. Whether it is one plot you're producing or 10 plot or 1 acres or 10 acres. The summary there is count your costs. You grab who goes into building a house without counting their costs. So count your costs very well. What does it take for you to produce on one plot of land, right? And what is the realistical value you can get selling that product from that one plot of land? Now, if, for example, you'll be spending 10 naira on a plot of land, right? And your projected revenue is 12 naira from that point of land, one thing is guaranteed: you've accounted for everything you could account for, and there's 2 naira margin, which, if you look at it, that's just 20% return, right? Now the question you should ask yourself next is, how do I widen that margin, right? If I take that product that should give me 12 naira, and let's say for example the cassava farm, and then I go and process this thing into gari, for example, or flour. Now, how much will I sell it? How much would that add to my original cost of operation, and how much would that add to my margin? So that will add maybe say 12 naira. It will make all my total money that I'll be spending on the operations now from 10 naira before, if I was just producing and selling, to around 12 naira to producing and processing. Now, how much will I now gain as money? Now, I'll be gaining 16 naira as possible revenue. Now, if you look at that margin now, you've increased your margin from 2 naira to around 4 naira margin. You've doubled your expectation only by just adding 2 naira extra to your cost of production, just so you can process the product. At that point now, you're expecting a 33% return on investment. Now, what else can I do again from there to increase my margin? Now, do I need to store this product and sell at a scarcity period? Yes. How long will I store it? Am I going to incur any money keep having to store it? If there is none, then I still retain that 12 naira on it. But however, because I've waited to when this product is costly in the market, I'm now selling it for something like 20 naira, right? It means that just by waiting a little bit longer, I'm now making 8 naira margin. 8 naira margin on that is now 66%. You can see that it's the same product, it's the same land. However, different considerations determine whether you're making 20% return, 33% return, 66% return. So those are variations to thinking processes. So whether you produce little or high, these processes, once you have it well documented and thought out, then you would actually have higher. If you can't even make 70, you could still make 60. But the summary there is the thinking itself is where the work is, being able to think. And as Inka said, sometimes thinking alone might be tedious. You might as well think alongside an expert. Did I answer that question?
I think maybe I should also say that with emphasis on don't outshoot your budget. Whatever your capacity, if it is half a plot, if it is few square meters, start with that. Don't, because you want to, start with a lot and you can't have the finances to keep up. If it is half a plot or just few square meters, you can start with, yes, but going
Exactly.
to take something out of it.
Exactly. Remember that time that we're supposed to do only, I think we're supposed to do 1 acre of cucumber. We went to do 4 acres. We smelled our nyash that time. We smelled our
It
nyash
was
that
a
time.
lot.
It was a lot. It was overwhelming. We literally struggled with everything. We were supposed to do only 1 acre. We
All right.
knew, but
Okay.
we still went for 4.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that answer. We are short of time now, and maybe let me quickly ask my own final question before we pick. I'm not sure if any of our audience have their questions prepared already.
Yeah, we'll
I'm
give them
checking
room to ask
through
their
our
questions.
LinkedIn.
We'll give them to ask their questions.
Okay, all right. Just in case you have questions. This is just to help the audience particularly to know of these issues that, or some of these challenges that farmers can face towards this particular target or a goal. So my second and final question goes thus: it says that in your own experience, what impactful technology solutions? Now, you asked me a question earlier on that in my generation, so to speak, that what area or how would we view 70% return in the first year, and just in case maybe you are applying technology, for instance, maybe technology solutions. Tofma is a company that brands itself as an agri-tech company. So that's the application of technology in agri. So in your own experience, what impactful technology solutions, or maybe they say all these precision agricultural tools and the likes. So what application of that technology and all those agricultural tools can help farmers to utilize or enhance their overall efficiency? What tools? I
I
hope you
think I
understand the
think I
question,
think I
sir.
got I get
What?
the hang of it.
Yeah, yeah.
I think I get the hang of it. So basically, if I'm looking at what tools, agricultural technological tools can be employed to boost your possibility of getting a 70% return in the first year. So I will want to first of all lay a disclaimer. Tech is not cheap, tech is expensive. And if it's not used it's not used judiciously or smartly, you could incur more costs than even what you want to gain. So this is how me and my co-founder often think whenever we want to plan, right? If this thing we are bringing in is not going to help us, then why bring it at all? We don't stress ourselves on it, right? If the cost of adding value to a product is not going to favor us in the long run, we don't add value to that thing, right? So adding value is about you considering first what opportunity that value you're adding is going to bring back to you. So, for example, let's take cassava, for example. Now, in the cassava farm now, what tool can you add to add value that can help you get 70% return after your production? It's simple. It depends on what you want to convert it to. If it's Gary, then you need frying pan. You need the that that's using steam to press the crush press. You need the crush press, right? All of the tools you'll be needing, the technological tools you'll be needing to ensure that you're able to do your processing very well. You equally need to ensure that you understand you have your tools to measure fermentation processes when you're making your Gary, so that it can have this sour slapping taste in your mouth. There's a tool in measuring fermentation processes, right? To know how far gone in fermentation it is going, right? Now that tool you need it, or you need all those old women that know how to just taste it and know how much fermentation is on it, right? You need those natural people to do what tech cannot do for you, right? But if you know you don't have people like that, you can employ tech to do that which you need them to do, right? So you need those things. Now the question there is, if you don't have it as your own, right? If you don't have it as your own, then I would advise that you take your cassava and go and meet those women, and then they'll do it for you. But if you are planning to do this thing on a long term, like maybe on a multi-year project, then you can invest in buying your own. But I will advise that if you know you're not doing it, you're not yet sure whether you're going to do that project for multiple years, then just take it to women that already have it, rent their equipment, and produce what you want to produce. There's an arrangement around that already. We could help you foster one if you're in the southwest. But that is it. So those tools will help. Now, like just similar to that, Gary, if you are looking to do flour, the tools are different. If you are looking to do flours that can be used for baking, the tools are different. So there are many tools that you could put in place to help enhance your profitability value. There are many tools. However, you have to consider it. Any tool that is going to incur more cost for you than the profit you want to get, then is it worth it? If you're going to have 3 naira on a 10 naira expenditure cost, you're going to have a 3 naira profit from it. For me, it is better than you having 6 naira on a 30 naira expenditure cost. So, for example, if 10 naira cost, you can get 3 naira profit from spending 10 naira. I prefer that value than spending 30 naira and getting only 6 naira in profits. You grab. For me, the 30 naira and 6 naira profit does not matter. It's not a good margin, right? If you look at the percentage, it is lower, right? Compared to 3 naira on 10 naira, right? 3 naira on 10 naira expenditure will give you typically around 30% worth of return. Why 6 naira out of 30 naira expenditure is going to bring you around 20% return on investment? You need to know how to calculate these numbers. Now, if the tech you want to add to it is going to take it to 30 naira and give you 6 naira profit, why without tech, raw material will give you 3 naira raw material and move on. So, as I said, you have to be able to look at these things. However, there are tools that you guys, and I've given you example with cassava, but I can't start listing all. We talk about vegetables, root crop, legumes and grains, and all those things. And when I was talking about those things, I was mentioning some few things like silos, like storage factors, transport logistics. I mentioned those things while I was speaking. There are various technological tools that will enhance your operation as a farm owner. However, if they are going to be too costly to bring anything, for example, I'll give you one insight. There was a particular farm we actually were. I'm not going to give more details about it, but the produce we're producing, wanted to go and sell it. And because of the transport logistics alone attached to selling that produce, we abandoned the produce. We sold some and abandoned the rest. Because at the end of the day, the transport was wiping away not just the profits we are getting from that sales, but even some more profits that I should not have touched. So it's at that point we had to take action and waste the products because it does not increase our loss further down the line. But selling now started increasing our loss further down the line, and that was not acceptable for us. So you need to be able to understand the tech tools you're talking about. Is it helping or reducing? Is it increasing or reducing? If it's reducing, then I don't think you need it. If it's increasing, then by all means take it on and employ. So, but there are various. We can't begin to list. They're just going to be there. Now, in terms of going into things like aquaponics, hydroponics, those new age technologies in farming, I won't lie to you. There's no way you can have 70% return in the first year. So in the current level we are in a country like Nigeria, there's no way you can have that. So that I'm not going to dwell on that per se, because I will just be lying to the audience about it. So I think
All
that's that
right.
basically.
Yeah, there you have it. Okay, Mr. Yinka, do you want to say something? Or someone? Okay, is there a question from someone?
Okay,
I
so
didn't hear the voice.
no,
Just
let's open it down to our WhatsApp audience. All right, so in our WhatsApp we've got
okay.
a few people there, and we want to ask if anyone on the WhatsApp group have any questions as regarding the session all day. Mr. Ruben, do you have any question? I think Mr. Okoro joined us a little bit late, but I don't know if he has a question or whatever to ask regarding the topic on maximizing farm efficiency and return on the future. Mr. Lewis, I think Mr. Network is glitchy. Mr. Okoro, does hear me? All right. Mr. Ruben's network is glitchy. Even our audience with 1428 is also glitching. The network is also having issues. But so far at the moment, there are no questions coming in for this session from the WhatsApp platform. There are a lot of network glitch happening there right now. On our LinkedIn as well, I don't think any question is coming in particularly. I got a report that yesterday.
Also there right now.
Yes, I also got a report that yesterday our audience value toppled over 50 people on LinkedIn. So I think we just have a bit of work to do to ensure that tomorrow's audience on LinkedIn would equally be robust enough. So I think that's that basically. It's already over an hour that we started this training, and it was originally mapped for 1 hour. We are very, very grateful for everyone's attendance. I think I'll allow Inka do the closing remarks. Mr. Ruben, do you have any question? Mr. Ruben Adebayo, do you have any question? His network is literally.
I think it's important to even know that they are following us, that they are present.
Okay. Oh, Mr. Okro, can you hear me? Were you able to hear anything at all since you came into the call? Mr. I can hear you. I can hear you, sir. I can hear you, sir. I can hear you, Mr. Okoro. Can you hear me? Okay, yes. All right, all right. Beautiful, beautiful. That's fine. There'll be a recording of it. There'll be a recording of it. That's okay.
Okay.
All right. You could ask. You could ask, sir. You could ask. You could ask. I can hear you. I can hear you. All right. All right, all right. But just to be certain, why you confirm the name of the member of the staff you spoke to, you said you already have a plantain farm existing. I just want to understand what value chain you could explore for your farm operations, right? That's okay. All right. Yeah, we do. That's okay. So what will happen is I would contact Chinka. Yes, I will contact Chinka and then we'll chat you up and set up a personal meeting with you, if possible today. No, no, no. Yinka, mainly you mentioned Yinka. I know it because one of the co-founders is Yinka by name. So, of course, whichever the case is, I'll message you after the session and then probably we can set up a meeting with you, me, you, and Yinka. Yinka is actually the one overseeing all the field activities. So, of course, he's also the right person to be in the conversation. He's currently on this call right now, but it looks like you'll be needing a more personalized service. So we'll be reaching out to you to set up a meeting time with you either this evening or tomorrow evening with you, if that's fine by you. I will. No, of course, we can always make time for you. You're our clients. You're the reason why we're having all of this in the first place. All right. Thank I said, of course, if this evening will work, we'll find a way to make it work. You're the reason. You guys are our client are the reason why we are having all this session in the first place. So not having a proper time for you guys post webinar would not be effective. So of course, we'll find a way to make this evening work. We'll just communicate the time with you. That's fine. That's fine. Thank you so much for your time, sir. You're most welcome. So, Olaoluwa, I've addressed the question on WhatsApp, and I think it's a follow up conversation. Mr. Ruben's network had been in and out so far, and so we don't know whether he has any question for us. No, I think he's back again. Mr. Ruben, can you hear me? Okay, so I think that's that for that. I think we can wrap up the call for today. We're way above our 1 hour margin. We spent an hour and 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So thank you. Over to you, Olaluwa, to close the call. Yinka will be talking
All
later
right.
after
Thank
this.
you, Mr. Nee. All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Nee, and thank you so much to our audience. I've been trying to engage the LinkedIn audience, and Mr. Nee and some other persons in the background are trying as much as they can to also engage the WhatsApp audience. But then, just like Mr. Nee mentioned, this wouldn't have been possible without us coming here, and we are here to serve you with whatever questions or issues that you might be facing. I mean, maybe challenges. So this particular webinar, the topic is essentially is how we can help you maximize your profits in agriculture. So I believe and trust that everyone here is an agricultural professional, and we always would love that your enterprise is growing and bustling or booming as much as you want it to. So with that, would like to call it a day and call it a wrap here. And let's not forget, this webinar is a 4-day webinar. So this is day 2, and day 3 will be happening once again tomorrow, same time, same place. And we'll be expecting you as much as you can. And if you have colleagues, friends, neighbors, people around whom you think will benefit from this webinar, please invite them. Do well to send the links. So we'll be sending the links, we'll be sending the recording and everything to the various communities that you are on. The Dofma community webinar, the farmland lease and sales, and DEPSA, various communities like that. So if you are not even a part, you can either reach out to me or any other person whom you see here, in order for you to be able to get first-hand information as regards any of this. So thank you so much for giving us 1 hour 16 minutes. I know that we have overshot the time, but it is always for the greater good. So thank you so much for being here, and we hope to see you once again tomorrow. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Bye, everyone. Thank you. Bye. Thank you so much. Thank you.